video is the ultimate Cayo Perico guide. In this video, I'm going to be showing you all the loot locations, all the disguise outfit locations, all the grappling hook locations, all the bolt cutter locations, where the cutting powder is, how to use the cutting powder, where all the water towers are, the power station, the control tower. We're going to be going over all of the weapons and giving you my opinion on what I think is the best to do this heist the fastest, easiest way. I'm going to be talking about all of the vehicles, and I don't mean like the motorcycles and jeeps on Cayo Perico Island. I'm talking about like the Velum, the Kosatka, the Alkonost, the Annihilator, all of the vehicles that you can use for this heist. We're going to be going over all of the infiltration points. We're going to be going over all of the compound entry points, whether you want to go in with the grappling hook, whether you want to go in with the gate codes, whether you want to burst through the front door or you want to drive through the front door. And then obviously the escape points as well. What is the best escape points and what are all of the escape points? All of that and more is going to be in this video. Now, the way this video is set up, just so you know here at the beginning what you're getting yourselves in for and you know how to navigate this video, obviously down below you're going to see timestamps, and those timestamps are going to show you each section of the video just in case you want to skip ahead or go back. But in all honesty, I recommend just watching the whole thing because you might learn something here today. But to start off the video, we're going to be going in depth on POIs, points of interest. Just like you can see in the background right here on the video, on the left hand side we're going to have a video of me showing you how to find things, and on the right hand side we're going to have a live map of me showing you and talking you through all of the locations for everything within that POI. So we'll do the first POI being like the North Dock, and then we'll move on to the main dock, the Airstrip, and go into detail on all of those. Then after that, what we're going to do, just as you can see on the screen right now, is show you the entire map and show you where every item is for each specific thing. So just like the one you can see on the screen behind us, this one is all the disguise locations. So obviously we're going in depth on like the main dock, North Dock, and Airstrip. But then obviously you may be thinking, oh, either I didn't find them at those locations, or I just want to know for future reference when I'm roaming around the map where things are. And that's where these maps are going to come in helpful. I'm going to show you every single item, location for everything. And then once we've covered all those basics, we're going to move on to the weapons and talk about all the weapons and the benefits of these weapons. And then we'll move on to vehicles, infiltration points, and things like that. So I hope you're excited for this video. It would mean the world to me if you would hit that like button, subscribe if you're new and you want to see more videos like this one, share it if you think other people would be interested, but also just make sure you subscribe. 78% of you guys are not subscribed. 78%? You'd make my day if you'd subscribe, please. So anyway, without further ado, let's jump into this in-depth guide of the Cayo Perico Heist. So first up, we have the Airstrip. Now, obviously, if you're at the Airstrip, the first place you're going to want to go is right in here and go all the way to the back wall over here. On the ground level, there's going to be 2 stacks of loot, or the possibility of 2 stacks of loot. And then if you can't fill up from that, all you need to do is go and grab the forklift and then make sure you pick up a pallet, lift it as high as it'll go. That way you can jump on over to the second level with the possibility of 2 more spawns of loot. Now, if you still don't have loot, when you come out of here, you can always go down here and into this building right here. This will also have the possibility of spawning 2 more stacks of loot. So that is all the loot locations at the Airstrip. Now let's move on to outfits. There's 2 outfit locations that could spawn here at the Airstrip. This location and this location. The first one is on the ground level next to some tables just up against the wall. And the second one, you just have to go up the stairs, take out a guy, and you'll see it right there. Now, like all of these locations I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be showing you where all of them can spawn, where all the spawn points are. But that doesn't necessarily mean they will spawn there 100% of the time. If you don't find them here, later on in the video where I show you the entire map with the locations, if it doesn't spawn here, you can go to one of the other locations and hopefully you'll find it there. And then last but not least for this location is the supply truck. If you're trying to do this stealthy, you've got yourself all your loot, you've got your disguise, the supply truck can spawn right here. And if that's the case and you get perfect luck, all you need to do is get inside that supply truck and you can drive it all the way to the compound. Once you get to the compound, you'll see that yellow marker. So go ahead and select that as the way of entry. And then as you can see, the guy's just going to wave you through and you'll come straight through into the compound without triggering any alarms. Just make sure when you're in the compound, the guys that have red cones, they will still see straight through that disguise, but the rest of them will not. I should also mention bolt cutters. They'll be up on screen right here also. If you don't get the cutting torch in your setup missions, I highly recommend everyone always get the cutting torch. But if you don't get it, you're going to have to find bolt cutters, and here's some locations for you right here. Also, the bolt cutters make it quieter for you to get into the locks. So if you use the cutting torch and someone's close by, the guards can hear that and it can trigger the alarm. But if you use the bolt cutters, it's a little quieter and less likely you'll trigger any alarms. And then last but not least is the grappling hooks. The one I always go to is at the bottom of the map right down here. It's the closest one to the airstrip. There is more all around the map, as you'll see later in the video, but that's the closest one here to the airstrip. The airstrip is also very unique because it has the control tower. Now, if you want to escape here, which I don't know why you would, but you guys like to punish me. I have a viewer voted Cayo Perico Heist I do every Sunday, and people like to punish me. But if you want to escape with the Velum from the airstrip, you need to go to the control tower right here, and you need to disable the air defenses. That way you can grab a Velum and you can fly off and complete the mission. Also, if you paid for any defenses, like the helicopter backup or a supply drop, you're going to have to take out the air defenses so they can come in. The second thing that's unique in this location is this spot right here. Now, this is the power station. If you walk inside here, you can see there's going to be two panels that you need to turn off. You walk up to the first one, turn it off, then you're going to have to walk on over to the one that's just on the other side, turn that off, and it will turn off all the cameras on the island as well as the lights. This will make the guard's cone of vision a little bit smaller and make it so you can walk in front of cameras with or without a disguise and not trigger any alarms. But keep in mind, once you go into the compound itself, it basically gets fixed. All the cameras in the compound now work, the cones of vision, the lights, everything is back to normal. And then when you leave the compound, it is also back to normal. So it only works on the entry. Next up, we have the detailed version of the North Dock. I assume if you're coming into the North Dock, you're probably doing it in a Longfin. If that is the case, I assume you're going to be coming in from this location over here, and I would recommend you come into land in this spot right here. That is because of the disguises. So the first thing you want to do is walk on over here. There could be a disguise right in this location. I'll throw it up on screen right here. There could also, in this location, just to the right of it, you just have to climb up a little bit, be a bolt cutter. From there, if you do have a disguise, you can just go ahead and walk down here. If you don't have a disguise, there could also be another one in this location right here. This also happens to be right next to the supply truck, which is this location right here. If it does spawn, just like everything, there is only 4 spawn locations for the supply truck. These are all the locations they can spawn. It doesn't mean they will spawn there every single time. And if it doesn't, you can just move on to one of the other locations and it'll be at one of them. From here, if you still don't have an outfit or a disguise, you can actually come straight down to this location right here, and there could also be one right here. As far as bolt cutters are concerned of this location, I'll throw those up on the map right here. We have 3 possible places for grappling hooks that could spawn here. I'll throw that up on screen again right here. The one that seems to be the most lucky for me, and it could just be luck, is on top of the water tower. And assuming you have all of that, let's move on to the loot location. So this building right here is the main building, and you are going to have to take somebody out inside, otherwise they will hear you. So just make sure you stealthily take those out, and there could be 2 spawn locations in here. If that didn't fill your bags up, go ahead and move to the second location right over here. Again, sometimes there could be a guard there you're going to need to take out, but this is the second location here at the North Dock that you can get loot solo. Now, if you're with somebody else, at least one other person, you can go down to this location as well and get loot there. Just like the main dock, there is one place where you need 2 people to get it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so here we are at the main dock. First thing I'll mention is boats. Whether you've got the primary loot and you're escaping through the main dock, or if you come to the main dock first and want to use a boat to drive down to the drainage tunnel, these are the locations of the boats right here. I didn't mention them at the North Dock, but you would have already seen that I put them on there. So first things first, at the main dock, if you come in, I'm assuming once again you're coming in with a Velum, and I would recommend coming in on this location right here, and then walking straight down here, and you're going to find the first location where you can get loot is here. Next up from here, if you do a little stroll down to this location, this is a place that could spawn a disguise outfit. If you didn't find an outfit in that location, there is a few more. I'll throw them up on screen right here where you can find outfits. And there is a few, quite a lot more that is close to the main dock that you'll see a little bit later on where I show you the entire map with everything on it. So if you're looking for a grappling hook, we have this location right here. And just to the south, there is a water tower, which you can't see on this little part of the map I have. But there could be one at the top of that water tower also. Bolt cutters can be found just on the other side of the water, or they could be found at the main dock itself. And cutting powder could also be found here. So this is the best place. If you get good like RNG, if you find the cutting powder right here in this location, you can just walk 2 steps, well, maybe 20 steps down south a little bit and put it straight into the water tower. There is also a vehicle, one of the supply trucks that can spawn in this location. So far we have 3 of the locations from the airstrip to the north dock and now the main dock. There is one other location that it could spawn in mid-map that I will show you later on when I show the whole map. And also you could see these driving around. I actually see them quite often at the main dock driving around. So if you're unable to fill up your loot bags from that first location, if you are a solo player, you can move on to this location right here. You may have to take a few people out to get there, or I should say to make sure they don't trigger the alarms, but this is the only other place you can go at the north dock to get secondary loot if you were doing it solo. If you are not doing it solo, you can go to this location right here. But again, you're going to need at least one other person with you so you can both press the buttons on each side to open up this gate. So now that we've gone over all the main points of interest in detail, let's go ahead and look at these maps. Feel free to pause it, take screenshots, whatever you want to do. This is going to show you where every single item is on the entire map. Starting off, as you can see in the background, with the disguise. With the disguises, as you can see, there is 16 locations on the map. That does not mean that they will always spawn 100% of the time in these locations. Most of the time, only 3 of them spawn, but it will be in one of these locations. So if you go to one of these red dots and it's not there, move on to the next one and so on and so forth. You will find an outfit, but it's not going to be in every single one, but this is where they all spawn. Next up, we have the bolt cutter locations. Again, this is all the locations. There is also 16 of them. It's not going to be in every single one of these locations, like I say, but it will be in one of them. So if you move to one and there's nothing there, you can move on to the next one, so on and so forth. But the bolt cutters, I think they do spawn more than the outfits. But still, if you want to find one, just go to one of these red dots. Next up, we have the grappling hook locations. Now, this is obviously a very important one if you want to use the grappling hook to get into the compound. I actually, personally, really love doing it. I love the animations. I think it's a really cool way to do it. But these are all the locations of where they could spawn. Just like the others, it's not going to be in all of them 100% of the time. But if you go to one of these dots, it's not there, move on to the next one. Eventually, you'll find it. Next up, we have the secondary loot locations. Now, this one's a little bit different. The green dots mean you can do it solo. So if you're playing by yourself, you can go to any of these green dots and you'll be able to get the loot. The red dots, those are the ones where you have to be with other people because it's one of those ones where you both have to push the button to get the door to open. But this is all of the secondary loot locations and you can go to these before you get the primary loot, after you get primary loot, but all green dots you can go to solo. This one's a little bit smaller. It's the power station and control tower. If you've been playing the game for a while, you don't really need this, but if you are new to the Cayo Perico Heist, the red one is the power station where you can turn the power off and the cameras. And the blue one is obviously the control tower so you can take out the air defenses. Next up, we have the supply truck locations. I just walked you through all of them in the in-depth part of this video. So obviously at the airport, you have the one that's right in between those buildings. If you go to the north dock, you have the one I showed you where it was. And then the same thing for the main dock. The only other one is you can see that other red dot that's kind of right there in the middle of the map. There is a spawn location right there also. Next up, we have the cutting powder location. So if you don't know what cutting powder is, you can't actually do this when you're doing the heist itself. This has to be done in the beginning when you're scoping out the island. So if you go to one of these red dots here on the map, you have the chance of finding the cutting powder. Once you've got the cutting powder, you need to put that in a water tower. And as you can see on this map right here, these are the 2 locations of the big water towers. You have one up near the north dock that I showed you and one down at the main dock. All you have to do once you've got the cutting powder is go to the top of the water tower, pour it in, and that is it. And what that will do is poison the guards. So when you actually do the heist properly, like once you load into the heist and you're actually doing it to make some money, the guards are going to be a little bit slower. Like when they shoot at you, they'll miss you, their aim's not very good, and they'll just be a little bit sloppy. So it'll just help you out. If you see the cutting powder, go ahead and put it in a water tower. Next up right here, we have the infiltration points. Now, this is where you can get into the island. So when you scope out and you've decided, okay, I'm using whatever vehicle it is, these are the locations you can come to. Obviously, if you want to go to the airstrip, you need a Velum. If you want to go to the north or south drop, you need the Annihilator. If you want to do the drainage tunnel, you need the Kosatka. If you want to do the west beach, you got to do the Alkonost, so you dive into the map and you can go into the west beach. And then obviously the main dock, north dock, you can use the Longfin or the patrol boat. But these are all the points of entry into the island. Now, once you've got into the island, you need to make your decision. How are you going to get into the compound? And as you can see right here, we have the main gate, the south wall, the north gate, and drainage. If you want to go in the main gate, you have two options. You can either blow up the front door and walk straight on in, but the alarm will trigger, so you're going to be going in there guns a-blazing. Or if you want to go in the main gate, you can steal one of the supply trucks like I showed you earlier in the video, and you can drive straight up to the gate and straight in without raising any alarms. If you want to do either the north gate or south gate, once you get into the compound gates, not into the compound itself, but into the gates, you have to take out some people that are around the compound. And one of them will drop a key code. And that is the only way to get in the north gate or south gate. You need to find the key code on one of those guards. And that way you can type in the code and go on in. And if you do it without triggering the alarm and no one sees the bodies, again, once you type in the gate code, you'll be good to go. The alarms will not be going off inside of the compound. If you want to do the north wall or south wall, you're going to need the grappling hook. And luckily for you, I've already showed you where that is, but it is actually really cool. I love doing the grappling hook. But that's what you will need if you want to do the north wall or south wall. So if you're wondering, why aren't they showing up when I'm trying to do my, infiltration or compound entry point? It's only ever showing me the main gate or the drainage tunnel. That's why. You need to actually find the things that you need, like the key code or the grappling hook. You need to find them while you're doing the heist. And once you've done it, when you get to the compound, then you'll see the yellow markers for you to do it that way. And then for the drainage tunnel, obviously, if you use the Kosatka, you can go in just super easy and quick that way. Or even if you don't use the Kosatka, if you come in with any of the other vehicles, you can still do the drainage tunnel as your entry point. You just need to make sure when you're doing the heist setup, you get the cutting torch. That way, that will be an option for you to get into the compound. Next up, we have the escape points. Okay, guess what? You've got your primary loot. Either you've triggered the alarm or you haven't. Now we need to escape. If you've been playing this heist for a while, if you watch any of my videos, you will know the bottom map is by far the easiest way to escape. And I'm going to be going over all of these here in a little bit to show you how to do it, but it's the easiest way to escape. The main dock is also an escape point. If you've selected that, you can go up to the main dock. There'll be some boats there and you can just drive away in your boat. Same thing for the north dock. If you make your way up to the north dock, you can get a boat and just drive away in your boat. The Kosatka, the only time you're going to be able to choose your escape point as the Kosatka is if your entry vehicle is also the Kosatka. So if you use the Kosatka as your vehicle for this heist, you will also have an option to choose the Kosatka. Wouldn't recommend it. It's just all the way up on the top of the map. It's much easier to do any of the others, really, except for the airstrip. But I would just jump off bottom map. But the Kosatka, if you want to do it as an escape point, you need it as your vehicle when you come into the heist. And last but least, it is definitely last and least, is the airstrip. So if you want to escape from the airstrip, like I've said earlier in the video, you need to make sure you take out the air support in the control tower. Once you've taken out the air support of the control tower, there's going to be 2 planes that you can steal from the airstrip to get away. One of them is going to be at the main part of the airport, right where you get your secondary loot and things. And the other one, which is my personal choice that I've done in quite a few videos, is if you go halfway down the airstrip, there'll be another plane down there. It's much better to take that one because there's less guards around. And it's just an easier way to get out of there. Okay, so now that we've gone over all of the locations of absolutely everything you need to know on the Cayo Perico heist, let's move on to the vehicles. So the first vehicle you can choose is the Kosatka. The Kosatka obviously being the submarine. This one, in my opinion, is one of the easiest setup missions to do, and also the easiest entry into the compound itself. So if you choose the Kosatka, you're going to enter on the bottom part of the map, obviously underwater, you're in a submarine, and then you're just going to swim on over to the drainage tunnel. Now, you need to make sure in your setups that you get the cutting torch. The cutting torch is not only used for getting into the compound through the drainage tunnel, but it's also the tool that you can use to open up the gates on all of the loot locations. So if you don't have the bolt cutters, it doesn't matter. You don't need to look for them because you already have the cutting torch. But like I say, keep in mind the cutting torch is slightly louder. So if there's a guard right next to you while you're using the cutting torch to get into the secondary loot locations, you could trigger the alarm. Next up, let's move on to the Alkonost. The Alkonost is just cool. Let's be honest, it looks awesome. It's just a cool way to get into the map. It's like you're playing a battle royale or something. So the Alkonost is one of the most difficult setup missions to do, though, because there's two of them. You have to drive to the airport or fly to the airport or whatever. Either way, you need to go to the military airport and you need to go into a hangar and steal the Alkonost. Now, if you're super fast and stealthy, you can just run straight to the door, get into the Alkonost and see if you can get on out of there. But most likely, you're going to have to take out a few guards, and there's literally like 30 guards within that hangar. So it can be a little bit more difficult. But once you've got it out, you just need to fly it to Los Santos International Airport. And then that is the first part of the Alkonost mission done. Then you need to go and do a second mission to get the pilot. That one's fairly easy. It's typically not a mission where you have to pick the pilot up. You need to go and do a job for the pilot, basically. It's fairly simple, but again, you have to do 2 setup missions to get the Alkonost. And if you're just trying to do this easily, it's not really worth it. But if you want to just test it out for yourself, go ahead and do it. But like I say, with the Alkonost, you can jump into any part of the map. You can land absolutely anywhere, except for the compound itself. Like I have figured out the hard way. If you try and go into the compound, you will see there's a big red cone. And if you fly into that, you will blow up. But there is a way to get into the compound. If you come in on the bottom part, you jump out and you like skydive into the bottom corner of the map, like you can see right here. You can land within the compound. And once you're low enough, that red cone will disappear because the game knows there's no way you're going to get into the actual compound walls. So the cone will disappear and you can just come on in there. That way you can take out some guards, get the gate key, and come in the side. There's better ways to do it, but it's a possibility. Next up, we have the Velum, which is obviously the plane. This, again, is a very easy setup mission. And with the Velum, you only have one option, which is coming into the airstrip at the Cayo Perico Heist. Now, with this one, there's a unique thing that you need to make sure you do. You need to make sure that you have a weapon stash. You need to also select the weapon stash. I have also found this out the hard way. If you drive the Velum into the airstrip and you don't have a weapon stash, that means you're going to have guns on you. And as soon as you land, you are going to trigger the alarm, and the entire heist is going to be happening with the alarm going off. Do not recommend it. I have done it myself. It was very difficult. If you want a challenge, go ahead and do it, but it's pretty difficult. But if you want to make sure that doesn't happen, you need to make sure you get a weapon stash. That way, when you land at the airport, you go into the big main hangar and your guns will be there ready for you to pick them up. Next up, we have the Annihilator, which is also, it's a really good one, but the only thing is it is a difficult mission as well. It's not super difficult. It's not as difficult as the Alkonost, but you do have to go to the Merryweather HQ and steal it, or you have to go to a yacht and steal it. It's just a little bit more of a difficult mission, but with the Alkonost, you get the options. The only time you can choose the north drop or the south drop as an option. Now, again, with some of the mechanics in this game, it looks awesome. You literally fly over to the drop zone and then you jump out and just like go down the rope, and it's really cool. But once you land on the ground, there's nothing there except for some vehicles. So you can pick up a vehicle and go to some other secondary loot locations and things like that, but there's really nothing there. Next up, we have the patrol boat, which is just the same as the Alkonost as far as difficulty, and I actually really wouldn't recommend this one, mainly for the fact that one of the missions, if you have to go to the Merryweather HQ, it can be bugged. So you can do the entire mission, and then when it comes to actually picking up the boat can be invisible, and it's just not there. So I don't recommend it. But if you get the one that's up on the North Lake, that one's it's pretty simple, but again, it's just a long mission. And unless you really want the patrol boat, I wouldn't do it. The Longfin is much better. You don't need a patrol boat at all. The only thing the patrol boat is useful for right now is if you saw my video where I did the Cayo Perico Heist in 3 minutes, there's a strategy to use the patrol boat, which I'll talk about here in a little bit later. And last but definitely not least is the Longfin. The Longfin, I would say, is probably the most common. You can use the Longfin to go, when you come in, you choose your location at the main dock, and you either go to the main dock and loot there and then take a vehicle up into the compound, or another very common one is to just drive the Longfin all the way to the airstrip, get all your secondary loot at the airstrip, and then take the Longfin all the way back down to the drainage tunnel and then go in that way. But that's all the vehicles, so now let's move on to the weapons. First and definitely foremost is the Aggressor. This is, in my opinion, probably the best weapon you can use, especially if you're a newer player, or even if you're a player that's been doing this for a long time. The Aggressor is a great weapon to use. If you don't know what the Aggressor is, it is a shotgun, and it's the only weapon that can two-shot the Juggernaut. So if you really want to take out the Juggernaut, there's a lot of different ways to do the Cayo Perico Heist. I have a ton of videos on it, but if you need to take out the Juggernaut, thought the Aggressor setup is the one for you. And with all these weapons, I should also mention, make sure you always use the suppressor. If you want to do this heist as silent and sneaky and stealthy as possible, you need to have the suppressor on all your weapons. It will make your life so much more easy and make the heist a breeze. Next up, we have the Conspirator. The Conspirator, in all honesty, you get a scoped rifle. The only reason I use the Conspirator is for the sticky bombs. And the only reason I use the sticky bombs is when I'm doing the patrol boat strategy that, again, I'll talk about later on in the video, where you literally just blow up so it puts you right into the compound. If you want to just have some fun and test out these weapons, sure, go for it. But again, the Aggressor, in my opinion, is just the one to go for. Next up, we have the Crack Shot. Now, the Crack Shot has a sniper in it. And again, if you're trying to do this heist for the first time, or if you've been doing the heist for a long time, and you're just trying to have some fun, test out some new strategies, this Crack Shot is actually really cool. I've used it a few times, especially in some videos where you guys have voted that I have to use it. And it's just fun. It's fun to take out boats. If you need a boat and there's none around you, you can find some NPCs driving boats and you can snipe them and steal their boat. If you need to take out people in the patrol towers, you can use the sniper and take them out. Again, just make sure you have a silencer on all of these weapons. It'll just make your life a lot easier. Next up, we have the Saboteur. Now, this is, again, just personal preference. If you like using SMGs, go ahead and use this one. It also comes with a pipe bomb, which, again... If that's what you're into, go ahead and use it. I would say this is probably the least recommended one, I would say, and I honestly use it the least amount of times. And last but not least, we have the Marksman with the Marksman rifle. This is probably my second favorite because it's good at long range. Again, make sure you always put silencers on these things or suppressors. But it's good at long range, so no matter what strategy you're using for the Cayo Perico Heist, the Marksman is just an all-around great gun. It doesn't have as much ammo, but you can always pick ammo up off the ground if you go an absolutely mental. But it's a really good gun. I would highly recommend it. It's great stealthy, it's great long range, great short range, great short range, and great medium range. Awesome, awesome weapon. But all in all, if we're going to round this up, I would recommend the Aggressor shotgun. You can take out the Jug. If you need to switch to a pistol, you can use that for a little bit longer range, or go for the Marksman rifle. Both of those options you can't go wrong with. Also, another option, which is pretty rare, I do have a video of it on my channel, that is the Minigun. Now, to get the Minigun, you need to go into the highest support crew when you're setting up for the heist, purchase the supply drop, and when you purchase the supply drop, you're going to have to head on over to the control tower because you're going to have to take out the air defenses once again because you're getting a supply drop coming. Once you've taken out the air defenses, you can see right here, I select the supply drop, it comes down, lands in front of me, and there we have it. There's also a rocket launcher in there if you want to go mental. But we have the minigun. Now, the minigun comes with 9,999 bullets, so you can go absolutely ham with this thing. It's great. You can use it on the way to the compound. When you're in the compound, you can go crazy. You can take out the Juggernaut. It's just for fun. Obviously, when you're using this, you're going to be sounding the alarm, so you're not getting any elite challenges, but it's a little bit of fun. Next up, we're going to talk about infiltration points. That is right, the infiltration points into the compound. So the compound entry point. You have 6 options here, being the main gate, the drainage tunnel, the north wall, north gate, south wall, and south gate. The main gate, if you want to go guns a-blazing, like I say, you can go straight into the main gate and blow that sucker up. It is obviously going to make a lot of noise, and as soon as you get into the compound, the alarms are going to be going off, and you're going to fail the elite challenge, because if you didn't know, in order to get the elite challenge, you need to make sure you are stealthy within the compound. As soon as the alarm is raised, if you're in the compound, you will fail the elite challenge. Now, if you leave the compound and the alarm goes off after you've left, you're good to go. You just can't have the alarm go off before the compound or while you're in the compound. So the main gate wouldn't work for that strategy. Next up, which is the most common, like I've said, is the drainage tunnel. That one, you're just going to swim from your Kosatka, or even if you don't use a Kosatka, you can, as long as you can get to the drainage tunnel, if you have the current torch, you can go into the drainage tunnel. Probably the most common, easiest way to get in. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. The drainage tunnel is a very good option. Now, the north wall and south wall, for this, you need to, like I've said earlier in the video, you need to get a grappling hook. And once you've got the grappling hook, you can either go to the north or south wall. And once you get close to it, you will see the yellow marker on the ground. Now, once you get to that yellow marker, you can trigger that as your entry point and you'll see the animation, which looks, it's probably my favorite animation of getting into the compound, for sure. It just looks so cool. And again, if you haven't triggered the alarm, if you're doing it stealthy, maybe you had an outfit and you get to that point where you get to throw the grappling hook over, Once you're in the compound, you still won't trigger the alarm as long as you haven't triggered it beforehand. And then for the north gate and south gate, for this one, as you can see what's going on here in the background, you need to take out some of the guards that are around the compound. Now, these guards will drop a key code. Sometimes you can get it first try. Sometimes you need to take out 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, maybe 4 of them. But eventually, you should have one of them drop the key code. And when you get the key code, you just go either to the north gate or south gate, and you'll see the animation. He'll type in a code, he'll punch it because it doesn't work, and then eventually it works, and you'll come on into the compound. This, again, is also a really good strategy. It depends on how you want to play this heist, how you want to... There's so many different strategies. I have so many videos on my channel you guys can go check out, but all of them have very specific perks and like the way you do the heist. It just, once you've done the heist a lot, you'll understand what I mean, but definitely go check it out for yourselves. It's another good way to get into the compound. Now let's talk about the exit of the compound, exit of the island. You're trying to finish, you've got your primary, you've got your secondary, you've followed everything we've talked about in this video so far, and you're ready to leave the compound. What is the best way to do it? Obviously, leaving the main gate. Once you've got your primary loot, leave the main gate and come out into the main courtyard. Once you're in the courtyard, if you haven't triggered any alarms, which I assume you haven't, you're going to run up to this guy with his little motorcycle, pop him in the back of the head, and then you're literally just going to drive all the way down to the bottom part of the map, ramp off into the ocean, and then once you land in the ocean, you're going to see 3 mines. Swim on over to them and just stop. Just stop and wait. You may be panicking because you're like, oh my god, I just wanted to finish. I wanted to finish. Just sit there for about 10, 15, 20 seconds, and as you'll see, it will end. And that is by far, anyone will tell you that plays the Cayo Perico often, that is by far the fastest, easiest way to escape. But if you do want to do other ways, let me tell you, there is a couple more. So obviously, I did talk about the Kosatka already earlier in the video. If you want to escape with the Kosatka, you need to make sure your entry vehicle is the Kosatka. That way, when you escape, you can choose that as your exit point, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's all the way up on the most northern part of the map, as you can see here. You need to jump into the water, swim on over to the thing, and then it will end. But it is just so far away, it's kind of ridiculous. If you want to go to the north or main dock, all you need to do is make your way to the dock. If you haven't triggered the alarm, it's actually really, really easy. You just drive on up to it, go into the water, grab your boat, leave, and it's so simple. If you have triggered the alarm, it's still not that bad. You can grab a boat, make sure you have snacks and armor on you so you don't do what I do and, you know, almost die by the helicopter shooting at you and things like that. But you can still get away even if you have triggered the alarm. But whether you do it with the alarm triggered or without, north or south dock, you go for it. It's, you know, it's another option. And then the worst exit point, as I've said multiple times in this video, is the airstrip. Because you need to take out the air support first or the control tower. So you can either do that before you get the primary loot or after, but you still, no matter what, are going to have to take out the air support. If you try flying away and you haven't taken out the air support, I have made that mistake in some videos, you will blow up. You will just completely just explode. So you need to take them out, and then you can go ahead and fly away into the sunset. And ladies and gentlemen, just like that, the video is coming to an end. If you've got this far and you're like, okay, I now feel like I know where everything is, I know what vehicles I want to use, I know what escape point or entry point or whatever, you want to put it to test some of the knowledge you've learned in this video, I have dozens and dozens of videos on my channel on how to do the Cayo Perico heist with every vehicle, with every entry point, exit point, absolutely anything. I also have a playlist where I spin the wheel, and the wheel literally decides how I have to do it, from the vehicle to the entry point to the weapon. I've done this basically every single way possible. But I will leave in the description and at the end of the video here some options for you. I have one that I'll leave that'll be the Velum approach, which is the one that goes to the airport, then back through the drainage. That's probably the most common. I'll also leave one in the description going into the main dock and going that way. And then just for fun, I'll leave the one where I did it in 4 minutes with secondary loot. If you're feeling confident, maybe you watch this video and you're a seasoned Cayo Perico player and you're like, you know what, I already knew all this stuff. Go check out that video in the description where I did the primary and secondary loot in just over 4 minutes. Go challenge yourself, see if you can do that. But anyway, as always, guys, let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I read every single comment. I will try to reply to you. We have an awesome community here on the channel, and if I don't get to you, someone in the community will get to you. Let me know if you have any comments, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button, share it if you think it's going to help out anyone else. Click that share button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Like I said, only 78% of you aren't even subscribed. So I would appreciate it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you tomorrow with a brand new video. Goodbye.